Hello, I'm Elizabeth Stewart, and I would like to share with you the difference between my short and sweet ceremony and my one-of-a-kind ceremony. Let's start first of all with the one-of-a-kind ceremony. This ceremony is for couples who really want to have an absolutely unique ceremony that nobody else in the world will have anything like it. Basically, everything is up for discussion, for negotiation, for creativity, and so from the very beginning of the ceremony to the very end of the ceremony, we can let the creative process take over so that you have choices in terms of the entrance ritual, in terms of the presentation of the couple to one another if you want to do that, in terms of the consent, in terms of the readings, the exchange of vows, the ring ceremony. Everything that goes into the ceremony can be tailor-made to the two of you. Let me give you some examples. Let's start with the ring ceremony. I had one couple who were really into baseball, and so their rings were placed inside a baseball that had been sliced down the middle, and the rings fit neatly inside, and there were baseball allusions throughout the ceremony, and that was really something very special to the two of them. Another couple were into being marathon runners, and so at the very end of their ceremony, they sat down and jogged out. They put on their gym shoes or their running shoes, and they jogged out to Chariots of Fire, which was really quite a stunning exit. And then even perhaps more dramatic were the two pilots who created origami paper planes for their guests, and when they exited the venue after being pronounced husband and wife, everybody flew their planes over the couple's heads, and in some cases into the couples, which nobody seemed to mind. Nobody got injured, but it really was a colourful and beautiful way of ending that ceremony. So many ceremonies I've officiated at have special moments in them that may have to do with bringing in different cultures or different religious traditions. I recently officiated at a Hindu-Christian wedding, and though I couldn't deliver the groom on an elephant, we had other Hindu rituals which we incorporated with some Christian ones as well. So one of these was walking the 7 steps around the sacred fire. In another case, the couple exchanged garlands after the vows. Or in Jewish ceremonies, Jewish Christian ceremonies, the groom may break the glass right at the end of the ceremony, and everyone, of course, says Mazel Tov to the groom. So the one-of-a-kind ceremony then is really as creative as you want it to be. It can also be traditional. In a couple of weddings recently, the vows and the wording for the ring ceremony came right out of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. And so quite wonderful to have these words being uttered all over the Chicago area, you know, to have and to hold, and of course with a British accent I'm able to deliver this quite well. I also want to talk about storytelling in the one-of-a-kind ceremony, and by storytelling it's not a sermon, I don't mean that at all, but rather it's the couple's story. And the information I have regarding the couple comes from our meeting together. It comes from questionnaires that I give you. There's a ceremony questionnaire, and then there's also a questionnaire that has to do with your life story, each of you, starting from infancy and going up to your first meeting and why it is that you want to be married. And so those are some of the elements that I include, not only in the ceremony, of course, but also in the storytelling. In addition to working with these elements, my first task is to ask you, well, what are the memorable moments that you want to honor in your ceremony? For some, it's the proposal, and there are some amazing proposal stories. In others, it's been a really tender moment. My favorite story, perhaps, of all time being the couple who met each other in preschool, stayed together, becoming a couple in high school, went through college together, and then went their separate ways. And one Christmas Eve, years later, they happened to run into each other, and they decided to go for a drink. And the bartender said to them, seeing that they were engaged in conversation, he said, well, what's your story? And the bride-to-be said, well, we used to love each other. And the bartender said, it looks as though you still do. And that's what made them stay together and get married. Then another really powerful story was the couple who basically used the image of a lifeboat all the way through their ceremony, or the storm of life, because they went through for better and worse before the ceremony. The groom had been extraordinarily wealthy, and more or less at the time he met the bride, he lost everything, including a yacht. And she became his lifeboat and basically helped him survive and dream about a new future. And so the marriage not only represents the coming together of two people in love, but also two people who are going to build a future together, having managed to survive a very rocky past. So that's a powerful story there. Other stories abound. I cannot speak highly enough of this as a unique kind of ceremony to have if you're into being in the limelight for a little. Your ceremony can be as traditional as you want, as fun as you want, as laid back as you want, and even as comical as you want. If you go to my website, you'll see a video clip from Justin and Cheryl's wedding with a lot of comedy in it when I'm doing some storytelling. But I have to point out that Cheryl and Justin are both stand-up comics, and so comedy was very appropriate for them. It may not be appropriate for everyone. You may prefer something more formal or something that communicates your values more than comedy. Now, in terms of the short and sweet ceremony, by now you've probably guessed that there are fewer options involved. You do have some options. You can choose a reading or two readings. If you decide to go with one reading and a ritual, that's another possibility. But you would either have two readings or one reading and a ritual. The kinds of rituals are more the standard rituals, like jumping the broom, roses for the mothers, lighting a unity candle, the sand ceremony. These are the kinds of ceremonies you can find online or in wedding planning booklets. They're familiar to most of us. But the difference with the one-of-a-kind ceremony is that the rituals can be created from scratch using your ideas as well as mine, and we can put them together that way. But you can, with a short and sweet ceremony, choose a ritual. You can also say your own vows or exchange love statements, is how I prefer to say it, followed by standard vows. And then what else? If you have deceased relatives, I will mention them, and if you have children who you want to incorporate into the ceremony, at least I can mention them by name. But any more detailed presence of the children would need to be a one-of-a-kind ceremony. So basically then, a one-of-a-kind ceremony allows you to have the wedding of your dreams the way you want it to be. And the short and sweet ceremony is still very sweet and not terribly short, probably 25 minutes. And the one-of-a-kind ceremony is not much longer than that either, usually. But there are fewer options with the short and sweet ceremony. A short and sweet ceremony is good for a couple who may be unused to being in the limelight and want to say as little as possible. So rather than exchange love statements, they may silently pass each other love scrolls, which they can then open later in the day. Or it may be that the couple basically doesn't want a very long ceremony, wants it to be plain and legal, and that's their prerogative to have a ceremony like that. Or there may be budget constrictions as well. So whatever the reason, for some people a short and sweet ceremony works very well, and for others the more elaborate one-of-a-kind ceremony, either with or without storytelling included, is the better option. Whichever form of ceremony you choose, I guarantee you'll be thrilled with it. My style is very spontaneous. I like to incorporate fun and humour as appropriate if you are open to that. However, if you prefer something more somber and traditional, I can deliver that too in a very proper English accent, I should add. What else? Really, the choice is yours. I'd be happy to discuss this with you further. Please go to my website and look at the choices available, and if you have any questions, I would be delighted to answer them for you. So congratulations, and thanks for watching this video.